Welcome to TMPodcast, a podcast dedicated to sharing insights on public speaking. I'm your host, David Santiago, a Toastmaster and lifelong student of public speaking. This podcast is for all the Toastmasters and public speakers out there that want to learn more about the tips, habits, and mindsets of awesome speakers. In this episode, we have Toastmaster Nicole from Wyndham Easy Speakers Toastmasters Club. She's an active Toastmaster with a love for music and a good story. In this podcast, we're going to learn more about her public speaking style and how her co-worker basically forced her to join Toastmaster. It's a good show, and I had a good time with Nicole. I hope you get some insights from this. Let me know what you think, and let's keep it going. Enjoy the show. 3, 2, 1, we are live. Once again, this is David, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing a Toastmaster that I look up to. Somebody that I've been fortunate to hear a lot of speeches and been in the crowd and been there captivated by her many speeches here in our club at Wyndham Easy Speaker Toastmasters. Before I even introduce you, I want to say what I know about you real quick. I know you're from New York City. I know you love music. I know you've done work with the Sheriff's Department and the crime prevention sort of, and you're going to correct me later with this department, and I know you're security minded, which I really like. But yes, today I'm going to interview for the first ever TM podcast, Nicole Jarena. Thank you for coming on to the podcast, and how you doing?
Good morning, Toastmasters, and welcome guests.
Yes,
I'm doing
thank
great.
you. That's awesome. So the points I said I know about you, can you talk about them? Did I get them right, or am I off?
I am from New York.
Okay.
I was born in the Bronx, but grew up high school years out on Long Island,
Okay.
which is entirely different than the Bronx.
Yes.
I did work with the Orlando Police Department in their Crime Stopper unit.
Right.
So although we were stationed in the Orlando Police Department, we were a completely separate entity, but we support law enforcement in 6 counties in Central Florida and all the schools as well. So it's an anonymous tip line where people call in
Right.
to report crimes.
Yeah, and I remember you did a speech on that, which, like I said, having a security background myself, really did capture my attention. So I definitely appreciated that. Now, for, one of the framework of this podcast is I want to focus on 5 questions. And like I said, I want to share with other Toastmasters insights, tips, and just mindset about speaking so we can all get something from it and hopefully become better speakers. Mm-hmm. So tell us about your story. What's your speaker story? What brought you to Toastmasters?
My coworker, Sakina, who was actually one of the founding members in our Toastmaster group.
Okay.
Easy
Yeah.
Speak.
Easy Speak. Yeah,
Easy
there you
Speak.
go. Ding, ding, ding.
She was one of the founding members,
Right.
and extremely involved in the organization. And one day she said, "Go with me to this meeting," and I did.
Okay.
And I remember it was during St. Patrick's Day. So everyone was handed a little shamrock with a little Irish proverb in it.
Right.
And I still have mine at my desk because it was so adorable.
Wow.
And she basically handed me an application and said, "I'm forcing you to join." And that's how
Persuasive.
it started.
Wow. I'm forcing you to join.
I'm forcing you to join. Well, she knows I like to talk. And during my years at the police department, I did have a chance to speak. Not this structured.
Okay.
It was more about things I really, really knew about, which was our program there.
Right.
So I was like, sure, I'll get up in front of people and talk. I don't have a problem.
So basically what she did was she made you an offer you couldn't refuse.
She did. She was going to make me swim with the fishes.
Wow. So that was cool. And also being from New York, I guess she saw that would be the way to get you in there.
Yes.
So that's cool. Real good. So you've been in Toastmasters now how long?
4.5 years now.
4.5 years.
4.5
Wow.
years.
That's a lot of table topics, a lot of
Yes.
speeches. And while you've been in Toastmasters 4.5 years, what are some of the highlights that you can just think of, whether it be an amazing speech you had or something that a certification or something you attained?
I've actually volunteered many times for many of the contests and
Right.
have done several of those roles in there. I do like those extra contests that we have throughout the years.
Okay.
I can see a change in me, and that'll be one of your questions. How do I prepare?
Right.
I'll
Yes, we're definitely going to get
explain
to
my
that.
shift
And that's a
in
great
preparing.
transition. We are podcast experts here, because that was going to be my second question. But
We
please.
can move to that one.
Yeah.
if you'd like.
How do you prepare? So the question is really, how do you prepare? A lot of times we have a special ritual or habits or just things that we do the day of. So please, yeah, how do you prepare?
My first speech was about working at the police department, and I did not prepare because I used to train law enforcement for our program. So I was like, sure, I can do this, no problem. But when I trained law enforcement, sometimes it was an hour long, and it's hard to put that into 5 to 7 minutes. So my first speech, and I rambled through it, was over 12 minutes long.
Wow.
So I did not prepare. Big problem. After that, I really take the time to prepare. I will first write an entire speech, word for word, everything I'm going to say. Then I will rewrite it. And here I have some of them. I will rewrite it in large font in just different segments I want to go over.
Okay.
And then I will highlight key words in case I'm stuck and I lose where I'm at. I can focus on that and know this is where I was at.
That's
because
awesome.
Those words pop up. But while I see the highlighted, I might look at the next paragraph to see, okay, now I need to go back into my flow.
Nice.
So when I prepare, it really is just sometimes a 5 to 7 page paper.
Okay.
And then I condense it more into an outline form.
Wow.
If I'm incorporating a PowerPoint
Right.
presentation, my outline will be extremely, I don't have that one for it. The one
No.
I did about voting.
Yes.
That one, I had more PowerPoint, so I really just did bullet points for my voting.
For the voting. Okay.
Correct. So it depends. If I'm not doing PowerPoint, then I'm more structured with writing. If I'm doing PowerPoint, it is really just bullet points. And I just keep going over it and over it and over
So
it.
now the bullet points, the reason why you don't go as detailed with the bullet points, is that because you feel comfortable with the topic, or is it because those bullet points are going to serve as your notes sort of live while you're presenting?
When we have a PowerPoint presentation, we're not moving around as much.
Correct.
I feel so.
Yes.
I don't like to point at the
Slides behind you.
the slides
Okay.
because I'll get dinged on it. So I will have just the bullet points in front of me,
Okay.
and I just feel like going over the bullet point, doing a small sentence. The PowerPoint presentation gives you the rest of the information. You don't need me to reread it to you.
Right. Okay. And that's very important, because a lot of times I've shared this with our club. I'm not a big fan of PowerPoint just because of the variables that it introduces, but a lot of times they're amazing speakers that their shine sort of gets robbed by the slides because they're so focused on it. So
Right. For the
I'm glad you
voting
brought
one,
that
I
up.
had to, because there was just too much information about voting and what we were voting on in Florida,
Okay.
that you needed to see what I could not reread
Right.
all of it for you.
And it just supplemented your talk. I remember.
I also did a speech. I don't know if you were there. I had guardianship of someone. I had worked before the police department, and I worked in accounting before that. But I had worked at a mental institution. I became guardianship of one of the
I did not. hear
guardian
that.
of
Okay.
one of the residents there, and he had passed away. And I did a whole presentation about him and my years working in New York and in Florida with children that were physically and mentally handicapped. And I wanted you to see photos of the kids that I took care of, because I think the photos of people spoke volumes. So for that presentation, it was just photos, no written words, and it was just to step you along so you could see my story in New York and then in Florida.
That's powerful. I'm sorry I missed that speech. That sounded like an amazing speech, and would love to hear more about that. But that is awesome. You mentioned early on that the first one you gave, you sort of like, you didn't prepare and you felt a certain way. And now with this process, how would you compare both in terms of your confidence when you speak? How would you compare both state of mind?
Although I knew my subject matter with the 12-minute long speech, I can look back and reflect and say there was no structure to it.
Okay.
Because when you're teaching in front of a class, you can have an hour, you can ramble off and go off into different
Right.
areas and go back to your main thought with a more
You don't have a timer, right?
Correct. With a more structured speech, I can really tell you the entire story. So I did take, every time I get criticism back, I do take that to heart.
Okay.
And I will adjust my future speeches by it.
That's awesome. And now your speaking style, it's sort of, I've had the privilege of seeing you speak, so your style is very personable, direct. You're not afraid to show emotions, to be vulnerable as well, which I think is a great great tool to have as a speaker. But I'm just curious to know, do you have any certain speakers that you admire or look up to or model, whether it be in our own club or the famous ones?
I do like many of our speakers in our club. I think I sometimes wish, like Wendy is our newest member.
Right. And she will be on the podcast in a future
I
episode.
wish I could use the language that she uses. She uses words that I need a dictionary for, and it's great. And she just knows how to blend it all. What I admire when I'm listening to speakers, because as a viewer, I'm also sitting there counting your right. And it amazes me that some people can do an entire speech without a hiccup in there. And I just wish I had that much grace. Like Kevin can tell an entire story to you with music flowing. Like Ryan's speech yesterday where he was doing Back to the Future, and he can blend an entire production with his speaking. It just takes a lot of skill. I wish I could do. It certainly does. And I see that they can walk and chew gum at the same time, giving a speech, and I'm still stuck on my PowerPoint and my notes. Right. And they have video, music, all these things going at the same time, and they blend it all together, and then it magically ends after 5 minutes. I'm not that structured.
Wow. Well, is that a goal that you want to achieve? Is that a level that you want to achieve? Or
that would be great.
Okay. So that is something that you're sort of shooting for.
I wish I could blend a video and music, and even Kevin came in one day with his soapbox and he gave this whole presentation. It was really moving.
Right.
I don't think my speeches move many people. I think they, like when my speech where I was singing with my awful voice, that was more humorous than anything. Right. But
it was awesome. I mean, you took us through a journey through music. Mm-hmm. I remember it, and it's funny because when you blend in music in a speech, in a presentation, it really evokes your emotions and it gets you locked into the speech. So I thought you did that very well.
Thank you.
But that's also one of our top questions here: is a goal. So you mentioned as a speaker, is that one of your top goals, to get to a level where you're using other technologies, or just have a sort of show presentation while
I would
you're
like
up there?
to do something like that in the future. I would think it would take an enormous amount of practice. For them, it just comes natural.
Right.
I'm amazed by it sometimes.
And just speaking about goals in general, do you have a particular goal that you want to accomplish as a Toastmaster, whether it be to participate in a contest or, just give 10 speeches this year? What is a particular specific goal you have?
A goal for me that I have not achieved, because in June I was supposed to have another 2 speeches done because of workload. It's just been a little crazy. Now, competing at this next level where you've gone to, you went to regionals, right?
I went to district.
Okay.
Yes.
I've been to those to watch people, because Sakina made it to, I think she made it to district, and then her goal was to go to the international one. I'm not that ambitious. I don't mind speaking in front of you guys, and I'm fine with that.
I hear you. Well, you know what? I might have gone to division. Thank you all. If you guys hear applause in the background, there's an actual seminar going on right next to us. So, but yeah, and I'm sure Toastmasters will correct me. No, Dave, you didn't go to district. You went to division. One of the 2 I went to. But yeah, you're right. I actually learned a lot from competing. And what I learned one of the things that I learned was like, I don't feel comfortable competing because especially if you're sharing a story that's personal to you. So I'm definitely going to adjust how I approach competitions, but I enjoy the process of going into this competition. It makes you a better speaker. Awesome. So we're getting down. We got one more of our 5 questions in our interview here, and so far we've been having a great time here talking to Nicole and learning about your speaking style and all that good stuff. So listen, one of the things that I want to share with people through this podcast is, they recently made a survey, top 10 fears in America. And with all the crazy stuff we have going on in our country, the number 2 on the list was death, right? Number 1 was public speaking. And as Toastmasters, we hear this all the time. And it's kind of shocking that number 1 would be public speaking. And so we are public speakers. So my question to you is, what's your advice to somebody that's listening to this podcast right now and saying, oh my God, I could never speak in front of people with a timer, people looking at you, and it has to be structured, and you have to achieve certain goals and so on. What's your advice to them? And by the way, do you consider yourself an introvert or extrovert as far as your approach?
I'm an extrovert.
Extrovert, okay.
I'm just in your face.
All right, okay. So it kind of comes natural.
Yes. I'll give the advice that I give to my kid.
Okay.
She is now going into the 6th grade, but in 5th grade and 4th grade as well, she had to give a lot of speeches. I get the same fears that everyone else does before they go up to give a speech, that your stomach feels empty and wheezy, your throat gets dry, your mouth gets dry, your heart is racing, sometimes you feel a little sweaty.
Right.
And all that is just, I check my Fitbit and my heart rate is like 130 and I'm not even running. I get all those same feelings as well. And I sat my kid down and she said, yeah, I get all those things too. And I always tell her, go up there and give the first speech. When the teacher asks who would like to volunteer for a speech, be the first one to raise your hand.
Right.
She does that every time because I told her, you gave your speech, you got it done. Now you can enjoy everybody else. And all those other kids are still nutted up and all anxious to give their speech, and they're nervous and they're moving. You're not even concentrating and enjoying it. Okay. Somebody told me this a long time ago, and I still keep it to heart. It's action conquers fear, which means that if you are fearful of something, conquer it and get over the fear and move on, because that anxiety to your body could just ruin the rest of your time there.
Love it.
So I always tell my kid, and I'll tell anybody, yes, you're afraid like everyone else. Everyone getting up there to give a speech, is only a few people that just go up and they are not afraid. We all have the same feelings, but conquer that fear, and then all of a sudden when you're done with your speech, you just go, and your body relaxes automatically. And then you're able to enjoy everyone else's speech. So whenever my kid has a speech, I'll always say, so were you the first one? And she's always either one of the first 3.
Okay.
And she gets it over with, and it's done.
And it's done.
Yes.
And I love that action conquers fear. That's definitely going to be a key takeaway for me for this podcast. But yeah, I just love that advice you give your child, and gave her that courage to. Yes. And but it also, it's not just these empty sort of advice. It gives you something to do, so which is to go up there. Well, with
that, she plays the piano, so she has gone and not competed, but she's actually performed several times to open groups on an auditorium.
Right.
She was part of the media team at her school, so she did the morning announcements.
Okay.
She's getting past that fear, and now in middle school, she's going into theater and band. Oh, wow. And I have just pushed her all along, even in Girl Scouts. You need to learn how to speak in public. We work on her with her, because kids are just so scared to talk.
Yes, in general. I mean,
she has to work on her manners, her handshaking skills. There's just a lot of things we can teach our kids. But for adults,
I see a speech developing there for you, by the way.
I actually am working on two speeches right now. Well, one is on the whole weight loss journey that I'm on.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the other one was having to do with hobbies and how they can be therapeutic.
Right.
And mine is crochet.
Okay.
So it's just pulling those two together.
Amazing.
But sometimes I struggle. What do people want to hear from me? To me, it's important, but to everybody else, it isn't. And I've thrown together some speeches that I'm like, nobody's really going to like this. And they're like, this was great.
Yeah.
Because we hear speeches from people about the oddest things.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, I didn't know that.
That's how they deliver it,
That's
right?
really cool.
Yeah. And I totally agree. I mean, there's some, I remember, one recent one was about Asperger's.
That was Jay.
Yeah, right. And when he said, who here knows about the topic, very few people rose their hand. So, thank you. I got so caught up in what you were saying there that I even forgot that I'm here at the podcast. So that's awesome. Action conquers fear. That is awesome. And speaking of piano and conquering fear, is there any particular song? I know you're a big music buff. So is there any particular song that gets you in that state of mind to go out there and speak and deliver an awesome speech?
Crazy.
What would be the one song you listen to right before you get on stage?
This is going to sound crazy. Every day walking into the building, because I have to get pumped up to do accounting because it's not the most exciting.
Right. And you work on the top, by the way. We work at a corporate building, obviously, and it's eight floors. So you work at the top.
I work
so
at
you're walking up to this building, glass building, and you're going to the top. And so, continue.
The music I listen to walking into the building every single day is heavy metal.
Heavy metal.
Heavy metal.
Okay.
During when I need to really get pumping, I need those drums.
Right.
So even when I'm running a race, I will just listen to heavy metal. I'm literally like my body needs to move to some heavy drums and a beat.
Okay.
Some people are like, I like classical music. And I'm like, I'll fall asleep. Although I do listen to a large variety of music, when I need something to really get me going, like, let's go. It's got to be heavy metal.
It's got to be heavy metal. And
heavy metal.
So what's the one song, though?
I have a whole bunch on my phone.
Let's narrow it down to that go-to song.
Lately, it's been Iron Maiden.
Okay.
That's because I went to the concert.
Maiden. I'm going to look that up.
I went to the concert last month, so lately it's been Iron Maiden. But my favorites are, I do like Motley Crue. That's another one of my favorites to listen to. Sometimes walking in the building, it's just Def Leppard. This morning it was The Cult, which is not heavy metal, but it is more of a like 1980s music.
Awesome.
For all the people listening, it was The Cult Firewoman because it has a beat, and I'm like, I am a firewoman. And that's what I have to listen to walking into the building. I walk to the drums, and I get in the elevator, and
Firewoman activated. Accounting, they don't know who they activated right there.
Right.
So once again, thank you. This has been a treat and a pleasure for me. What I want to do here is just anything you want to highlight, any organization you want to highlight, or
no, I can just address the listeners. If you are fearful of public speaking, because I have seen the growth in people here that we speak with. Landy is a great example.
Right,
Landy sat next to me, and we started Toastmasters together, and she could barely say good morning.
Okay.
And
that's so hard for me to even.
I know.
Imagine having seen.
The only reason why Landy spoke to me was because we sat next to each other.
Wow. And she actually delivered a speech during our open house, which rocked the whole house. So
yes, and now she has gone off and written her own story and presented that, and that was very moving about suicide and depression. But I will tell you, my first speech with Landy, we did our icebreakers together.
Okay.
And my icebreaker was before hers, thank God, because my icebreaker was about, I decided not to speak about anything bad about my past, but it was great and wonderful living in New York, and I had great friends.
Right.
And then Landy gave her speech and told of her pretty much awful childhood. I boo-hooed cried for the whole thing. And I was just, I learned so much about her.
Okay.
In a 5-minute speech. It
Right.
broke my heart, but I think that was just so therapeutic for her. She just threw it all out on the table, and since then she's
Right.
just rocked Toastmaster. She just
And
really
I could
has.
definitely attest to that.
I was shocked
for
that
sure.
she could even deliver a speech that was so personal, and I think that's what really shattered the window for her. She just went in and she was, Psh, that's it.
Wow, that's amazing.
And
so
I've
it was
seen a
her
lot of people go from
coming out
not
there.
talking to their fabulous speakers now. So whoever's
awesome.
listening, if you're fearful, start giving speeches. And I do agree, give your speech to yourself in front of the mirror is great.
Got
Have
it. That's
somebody
what it.
videotape you, or give your speech
Awesome.
to family members so they can give you feedback, and
And
you'll get it.
That's
You'll get
awesome. And I'm definitely going to reach out to Landry, get her on the show, hopefully in the future.
it. She's on vacation.
She's on vacation. All right, I'll reach out to her. So Nicole, thank you very much for your time and your awesome insights and tips. I really enjoyed the show, and I hope that our listeners enjoyed it as well. And so thank you, and this concludes this meeting.
Good luck, everyone.
All right, thank you.